Nobody tells you how much unlearning you have to do when you decide to date outside your culture or country. And I wanted to make a video kind of sharing some of the things that I had to unlearn and also some of the more humbling parts of dating abroad. So if you are someone, especially a Black woman who is looking to find love, I promise you, you will be surprised by what is out there. I know it's also scary to put yourself out there in new environments and expose yourself to new types of men and experiences, but I have so many friends as well as myself who have found such incredible stories and created incredible memories. And love is one of those things. I think it's a top three human experience. And I will always commend the person who keeps their heart open for love if you desire it. Okay. So the fifth thing, or I guess the number five lesson that I learned dating outside my culture is the stairs. So interracial dating is already signing up for, I think, a slightly harder experience. I knew that being a Black woman already is kind of a vulnerable thing in some places. You already command a lot of attention. When I say command, you aren't always asking for it. You're just existing in a Black body. But by virtue of you being one of the only, if not the only Black person in that area, you will get stares and you will get attention. And I think what I learned later, I'll actually recall a memory. I was in Montenegro and we were there just on a vacation, taking a break from the company. And I woke up one morning and went to the beach for an early morning walk, brought my book, found a little cliff, and sat down to read. And a little boy, not little, I would say 12, teenager, 12 to 14. He comes up to me and he says, Africa woman, so beautiful. So he's Montenegrin. So this is former Yugoslavia. And Africa woman, so beautiful. Wow. Like African women best. And it's like broken English, but he knows enough. And I won't say verbatim how he said it, but he implied that Black women have natural bodies, and that's what makes us beautiful. You can call that fetishization. I think it was him just saying, listen, I see how everyone is trying to become you. Like, y'all are the standard. And it is so true. We grow up a little bit self conscious because we have wider hips, a bigger butt, bigger lips, bigger cheekbones, whatever it is that was your insecurity. And then there's all of these injections and body modifications that essentially are to recreate the Black woman's body on other people. So, yeah, I also notice it. It's very, especially in um, homogeneously white countries, you will notice that lip injections are very common. I wouldn't say BBLs are as common, but there's definitely body modification if it's like breast augmentation or something like that. And this isn't to shame, women who do this at all, but it's just noticing. Um, I had to unlearn the idea that because I was never going to be a baddie in the US. The video vixen, there's a look. You might call it the it girl. It's very big on Instagram right now, but the baddies have a look. And I dress on the more modest side. And I also, I don't know if it's like religious trauma, but I kind of get embarrassed if my clothes are too tight, if my butt is accentuated in my pants, if you can make the shape of my body based on my clothing, I actually get embarrassed by that. So I tend to wear larger clothes, bigger clothes. I like it to feel a little bit looser and more breathable. I just don't like to feel like people can see my body with clothes on top of it. That's just my personal comfort level. And again, that could be some conditioning that I have to get through, but I enjoy dressing like this, so I'm going to keep it like this for now. And yeah, I just recognized that I was never going to be that aesthetic. And whether that was the desired aesthetic in the US or not, it just was never going to be me. So if we think about, let's say you're in a room and there are 20 eligible bachelorettes and 20 eligible bachelors, what's going to happen is amongst those 20 men, there's probably going to be five that are going to be the one that all 20 women are actually going to go after. And whether it's because of the man's height, the man's build, the man's facial structure, bone structure, usually women are competing for the same men. And so these body modifications or the way women can dress is sometimes to signal like I can be better or I am one of the better ones or my body is better than, the other options out there. And so what I think this does for young women, it creates this, I mean, body dysmorphia is already an issue, but it creates this sense of not being enough. And so I feel like with my style, I never fell into the trap of trying to change or do things different to appear more desirable for the male gaze. And so the biggest thing that I unlearned on this, going back to this lesson, is that I could just exist as I was, and that was beautiful enough. Even still, that came with stares. I would feel like I'm not trying, like I'm wearing jeans and a t-shirt, and I would get these eyes like, your beauty. I'm like, so I had to work through my own self-image and self-confidence. Because I was so invisible in the US, I was so overwhelmed by the attention abroad. Because I'm like, what do they? There was a time I looked in the mirror and I was trying to see, I was trying to see what men saw because I was so used to just, I almost put the invisibility cloak on myself because that was my daily experience in the US. So getting all the stares when I first started dating Stefan, it was really uncomfortable. I'm not gonna lie. It was because I didn't know what they were interpreting. I didn't always feel comfortable with the lingering look or how long the stare was, or, there would be some occasions where the men would fist bump. They would look at me and be like, oh, to him. And I'm like right there. I think that was cute. But then in there, blah, 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 blah. That's my cue for a water break. There was a trip we took. We were either in Cambodia or Bali. I don't remember. But there was an older white couple, and we were at a very authentic, yes, it was Bali, authentic Balinese restaurant. And the older white couple, they were definitely European, maybe Dutch or Belgian. And they came over to us and just complimented how beautiful we looked together. And I remember when we were eating before they came over, they just were staring. It wasn't rude, wasn't curious. It was just kind of like I would catch peaks constantly. I didn't think much of it, but the way they were so complimentary of like, ah, great job for humanity. It looked like she felt like we were, doing it for humanity. It was very cute. And sometimes we'll get in a taxi car, and the first thing the taxi driver will be like, "Oh, caramella babies! Like, you'll make caramel babies, yeah. Like, how fun!" It's just, and we're like, "Hello, airport? Like, is this the right car?" But the excitement, sometimes the reception was like, oh, this excitement of these two cultures coming together, how beautiful. And everyone loves love. So I think that also helps. Okay. The next thing that I had to unlearn and remember and realize is that accents are cute until they show up in arguments. The language barrier will be a thing. I don't want to call it an issue, but it will be a thing. And one of the things I had to really humble myself with, um, if English is the primary language, which I'm going to assume it is, that you're speaking in the relationship, you will always be able to communicate in your first language. Understand that your partner, if you're dating abroad, will always be translating his experience for you. That requires a level of patience and humility that you might not have ever had to access before. And the journey that I had to go through and my own work around like, yeah, like I can't imagine even I speak four languages and there isn't a second one that comes close to my comfort with English. And so I can't imagine always having to relay my frustration, my anger, my raw vulnerability or emotions in a second language. it's not always going to be communicated properly. So there might be issues around that. And you just have to have a lot of grace for when those disagreements happen. Okay. Third thing that I had to unlearn slash realize is that independence and strength is a plus and bonus in many countries and slightly, I don't want to say threatening or intimidating, but there's another word and it's going to come. So I'll use a couple examples. Germany, Scandinavian countries like Norway, Denmark, Finland, they are, listen, female centric. They empower women. They believe in a lot of just equality is huge there. And many of these countries have year-long paternity leaves. So the mom has maternity leave for a year, and the father has paternity leave for a year. So that level of equality. And so when it comes to strength and independence, in those countries like Scandinavia and Germany, it's like championed. They love strong women. They believe in strong women. They respect strong women. On the other hand, let's say in Slavic countries like Serbia, Montenegro, Bosnia and Herzegovina, Albania, it's very much like, that's cute. You have straight, but let me take charge. They of course want to pay, they want to open your car doors, they want to accompany you, they want to protect you, they want to be there for you. And so again, the unlearning of like, I'm used to taking care of myself. I'm used to doing what I need to do. I'm used to not having to check in and like ask. It's not even for permission, but just like run things by another person and making sure culturally you're being culturally sensitive to how you are wanting to um I don't know, do whatever it is. I remember there was one instance we were um we were going to maybe like a festival. I don't know, but maybe that's not the best example because that might have been a one-time thing. But you just want to be mindful that it's not machismo because machismo culture can play into toxic masculinity. And that is something that we do not uphold over here. Okay. But there are men that take a lot of pride in protecting you, providing for you, keeping you safe, keeping you covered, keeping you well. And I will say, in my case, like a Bosnian man, like Stefan, is very much like he loves to serve me. And it's such a beautiful thing to experience because I pushed it away in the beginning because I didn't feel worthy of it. It was almost overwhelming to be served to a degree that I had never experienced before. So the work that I had to do is loving myself enough to realize that I'm worthy and deserving of that type of treatment. First thing I wake up, it's like coffee is being served, tea is being served, ask me what I want, foot massages, just cooking all the meals. Like I don't have to cook. And that type of like love was never experienced or afforded to me in the US. And so I think the first few months of that relationship, I'm like waiting for the shoe to drop. Like, okay, this isn't real, right? Y'all don't really act like this. Like, what's the catch? But truly, there are cultures that take a lot of pride where the man serves the woman, and it's not in this effeminate way. It's not, it has nothing to do with him losing his masculinity. It's this tender masculinity, this gentle strength of like, I'm a provider and I'm I'm here to be the stabilizer in this relationship and to make sure you're covered. So it's very beautiful. Okay. Second thing that I had to unlearn and work on, honestly, is to ask before assuming. There could be something that I might think is inappropriate, but the context and the culture in which they know it, it's very normal. And I think in general, like, trying to think of an example when you, let's say, this is actually a great example. There was a comedian that in the US got away with saying like some not cool stuff and like just when it comes to comedy, everything goes more or less, but this person is more of like used comedy as a way to excuse his racism. So he's just not a good person. And so when I saw that that person was touring in their country and it was like he was a big deal, I was so offended. I was like, God, how could you listen to a filthy racist like this guy? Like, and then the context is like that guy had done a lot of volunteering. He donated a lot of money. He supported that country during a time where they needed it. And so sometimes we can't always carry our trauma, but also our offense into every situation because people in other countries are going to have their own relations with public figures, celebrities, and artists. And especially with American artists that aren't always touring globally, when they come to someone else's country, it's a big deal for them. And so it's just going to be different. So I had to almost like just be more tolerant of there's another experience and there's another relationship that someone could have with a public figure. And I can't take that personally. And I have to also be okay with having that conversation of, well, here's why this person makes me uncomfortable. And I would just appreciate maybe we don't listen to it in the home. Like you can go to that event, you can have fun. And it's not that we have to both come to an agreement on this is our family stance about this comedian. It's just like, you know, you developed a relationship with this comedian in one way, and so did I. So that might happen with artists, public figures, politicians, politics. I think you always need to be on the same page. But yeah, so I wanted to mention that. Okay, and then the first thing that I had to unlearn and really, really work at is that chemistry doesn't always equal lifetime compatibility. You can, well, number one, travel will heighten almost everything. Your emotions, your senses, your joy, your freedom, your liberation, your empowerment, your connections. You will feel like, oh my gosh, this is meant to be. Meanwhile, it just happens to be a full moon. You know, you really don't want to get too caught up in the fact that you both like the same color. You both ordered the same meal at the restaurant. You both happened to have two siblings. And we tend to over romanticize these small coincidences that don't really mean anything in the long run. So making sure that, yes, you're, you know, building chemistry and chemistry is chemical and it's we feel it in our body, but it doesn't always mean it's fact. Like the feelings aren't always the facts. So making sure you're separating the emotional side from the logical side, which is like, okay, actually, am I willing to invest more energy, time, and effort into this connection? Does it make sense long term? And you might also have your own goals. Like maybe you are only interested in a short term relationship because, there was a comment yesterday on the video that one person she's been a widow for 10 years and her kids are grown and she's ready to date again. Maybe you're not looking for marriage off the bat. You are just wanting to put yourself out there and remember what it's like to be in relationship and build safe, healthy male companionship. That's fun and that's okay. I think this approach that I'm looking for my husband is scary. And there's also a lot of pressure. Imagine going to a networking event and like you're there to like meet a best friend, but everyone else is there to just kind of exchange names. The pressure that you're putting on yourself of like, I have to meet everyone here and figure out who is the person that's going to be my best friend. No one knows who's going to be best friends until time has passed and you're like, yeah, this connection's really organic and it's fruitful and it's mutual. So let things like play out over time and don't put too much pressure on yourself for any one person to work out. And let's say, for example, because this is what I did and I very much recommend it. I'll put the link in the description, but the pass is called Eurail and it's basically a 30-day train ticket pass. And what you get to do is travel through 28 Schengen countries around Europe. And if you are someone that's just ready to put yourself out there, which is what I was, I was saying that I wanted to find love, but I wasn't going on any dates. I wasn't I wasn't saying yes to anyone. I wasn't even entertaining the idea of being in a relationship. I was just hoping that the perfect situation would find me and then I can just say, okay, let's shake on this. So a lot of the heartbreak you're trying to avoid also blocks out the same love that you're trying to find. So understand you can't get one without the other. Not saying heartbreak is guaranteed, but it is a part of the process. It is a potential consequence of stepping in the arena of love. But I promise you, it is so worth it. Okay. So you get this Eurail train pass. And what I did is I downloaded a dating app and I allowed myself to, again, the premium features I talked about, why I believe you should buy the premium features on the dating apps. I believe they're $10 to $15 a month. But what it allows you to do is change your current city or location so that you could swipe in the country before you actually arrive. So I remember I started in Switzerland and I believe I was going down to Germany. So before I got to Germany, I was able to actually swipe and find a date before I got to Germany. So that when I get there, like I get to go to coffee with someone or I'm meeting at a cafe with someone. And my rules, I was sober dating only, daytime dates only, and celibate. So single, sober, celibate. I was like, I am trying to build the most frictionless foundation of friendship first. It's an alliteration. But truly, I was like, my approach in the past was not working. And I cannot go from isolating myself from men to finding a husband. There needs to be this gradual, incremental process where I allow myself to trust a man. I allow myself to believe in the possibility of going beyond male companionship. So taking things a step at a time. And I would just stay in each country for 3 to 4 days before I got back on that train pass and went to the next country. And so I believe I went down to Slovenia. So before I get to Slovenia, I make sure I have 1 or 2 coffee dates lined up. And it's beautiful because then you also have like a tour guide, someone that wants to take you around. And of course, it's a great thing for them because they get to pretend they have this beautiful woman on their arm, and so it's a win-win. You get to see the city, you get to learn from a local, and you get to open yourself up to the possibility of, wow, can I see myself dating abroad? Can I see myself in a long-term relationship? Does this feel safe? Does this feel healthy? And oftentimes, especially in the US, we're so preoccupied with how love looks that we don't think about how love feels. And so the feeling of love, of putting yourself out there with cultures and in countries that you are experiencing for the first time, it's a thrill. It is exhilarating and it can be so much fun. Like I want dating to be a fun adventure for you. And that year before I met Stefan, I told myself that my next adventure is a person. That was what I was calling in, and that was what ended up happening. Okay. So I hope you enjoyed this conversation. If you want to continue the conversation, I'm going to talk about some of my dating app strategies in the room. You can join the link below, or you can click subscribe and then click join. It's basically a private space where I have more unfiltered conversations continued from these videos. All right. If you don't know, my name is Glow and I make videos every single day somehow. We're going on day 131 or something like that. But it's been a pleasure. I hope you're enjoying this process and you can check here for some of yesterday's videos and I will see y'all tomorrow. Bye.